Good evening, all. Really appreciate you taking the time on a Friday evening to come over. So hopefully it will be worth it. I think most of you are aware of who Turbostart is and what we do. For those who are not quite conversant about it, we are a fund and an accelerator with Ganesh's vision saying, from India, we are going to create the next generation Y Combinator with a global footprint. And I am happy to say after 4 years, we are well on our way in terms of realizing that vision from India to Middle East to the US and next year soon into Asia Pac. And what differentiates us is more than a fund, we are an accelerator where we see ourselves as partners in the journey along with our investee companies through the most difficult journey, if you will, to increase their odds of success. Now, we are a sector agnostic fund and we look for interesting opportunities across the board. Having said that, we focus on certain type of startups which are quote-unquote digital, which are pure play digital startups, or those enabling digitalization. And under that theme, AI is extremely important. And today, generative AI is the word. There is a lot of hype, but I personally do believe that there is something real happening here, especially in the context of both AI and enterprises. And today's panel discussions are going to be focused on that theme. Thanks again for coming.
Welcome to all three of you, and thanks so much for this. Venkat introduced with Gen AI. I thought I'll take a small digression with a small story on how Gen AI already is. I don't want to sound apocalyptic here, but I don't know how many of you know Hollywood is under strike right now for the last 4 months. Yeah, how many of you know? All of you know. How many of you know Drake? Drake, the singer? The song that got picked by Drake was the seminal moment for Hollywood to really stand up and start observing that Gen AI is here and real. And then something else which has been there for a very long time, digital cloning. So two things which have actually disrupted Hollywood. And for the first time in 65 years, about 160,000 people in Hollywood are not working. So for all your movie buffs, you're not going to see any movie for the next foreseeable future till this strike gets called off. And why is all of this happening? Yes, so this was produced by a Chinese TikTok guy who mixed few things together and almost Drake got created. So why is this happening? Because they're trying to safeguard their livelihood and existence. And all they're asking for is guardrails around this, right? Guardrails around the whole thing of how will AI get used and digital cloning again. And what I understand is people from the industry which support as junior artists are getting cloned. So tomorrow if I stand up, they'll just create a digital clone of me and then will not call me forever for a job in Hollywood. So the writers, the support cast, the musicians, all of them are up against it. I don't think it is as bad as us for enterprises. And as we spend the next probably 25 minutes or so, I would like to take few views from a diverse audience here. Brij, you've been part of a fund and now you've launched your own AI company. Your global experience from corporate and again with you, Venki. I'll open up by asking a small question just as a warm-up. Right? As all of us have experienced Gen AI or AI in the past few months, rather has gained prominence after ChatGPT and Gen AI and all of that has come in. Let's start from you, Venki, this way. Your point of view of the ecosystem that you work in, you're seeing that impact. How is it disrupting workspaces or workplaces? Just let's go the round and then see what interesting things come out of it.
Sure. Thanks, Niranjan. Well, I'm very much in the center of the whole AI revolution as a media and entertainment company, both from an editorial perspective, a content perspective, a marketing perspective. This is, I think, a revolutionary, shift in the way we operate. To give you some very small examples, my entire graphic design team is currently using Midjourney to generate images which were always in their heads, but somehow I think all the enterprise tools in the world couldn't bring it out. So they're using that heavily. Our editorial teams are coming out with very exciting headlines and stories around topics. Almost, it's like saying you're spoiled for choice because you get so many different variants and then you get to choose which one you put out there. So that's the second big shift that's happening in the way we work. And finally, for our clients, who are our advertisers, they've always been asking us, hey, how can you best deliver on performance marketing? And if there's one product market fit which I would call out for any startup out there, if you can solve this, it's just a massive opportunity for you, where performance marketing clients use different creatives to see which ones are working and which ones are not. It's almost like a non-stop 24/7 iterative and experimentation cycle that's been unleashed because of AI. So, I mean, every day I go to work, I hear of something new and new ways in which we're using these AI tools. So it's just extremely exciting, I think. And for a very long time, this has been a generationally new or a transformatively new way of using technology in this field. So I'm very excited, and I think I'm maybe too old for this, but I hope this is going to re-energize a lot of us who've been very senior, because I think this is here to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're just getting started. How do you see in that part of the world?
It's interesting phenomena, right? I started off in an industry when there were no computers. That's the era that I grew up with. And here we are. And my mom says now IIO. So if you don't know AI, then it is IIO. You are in serious trouble. That's where it is. But to cut this short, I think there are 2 points I want to make. All the CEOs that I know, globally, even if you look at it, everyone unanimous to say that we should embrace AI and they are open to it. The biggest challenge that occurs is the teams, because they are frightened, some making a mistake in choosing a wrong AI platform or a tool. And therefore, there is always a question of, am I being evaluated for choosing a wrong AI tool? I think that's something that one needs to change dramatically. The second element is very simple. The biggest advertising, marketing, and publishing world are under serious threat for a simple reason. In advertising, the creative, the community, and the copywriting community is under serious threat, whether you like it or not. Because most of our ads now is no more long verbose verbiage. It's very short, pithy, and to the point, and it should reverberate very quickly with the short form of words that you use. And AI brings much sharper, better insights based on crawling through rather than anything else. The publishers on the other front, in fact, the latest research just 2 days ago, which was published, over 11% of the top 1,000 corporates in the world have already started using web crawler blocks to ensure that no more ChatGPT crawling can occur, bot GPT can occur. What does this mean is that whether you look at Amazon, whether you look at Quora, whether you look at Indeed, whether you look at New York Times, all of them have already blocked because they don't want others to learn at their expense of their own insights, what they have gathered over a period of years. And this is a real conflict and the test that's going to occur, and this is where we need to treat the right path. So these are 2 points that I would say is a starting point, but AI cannot be stopped. It's now within each one of us. That's where it is.
Interesting one, Ravi. Enterprise edition of ChatGPT got released yesterday, which is exactly what they're going to do, is just guardrail your data for your organization and not feed it to the giant engine that it has become. Yeah, please go ahead.
So I think more from a startup perspective, what we're seeing, I've been an investor for the last 7-8 years with Rebright, which is a Japanese venture capital fund. We invested in companies like MediBuddy and InShorts and others in across different sectors. What we see is startups now need to really think about how to embed the latest SOTA Gen AI models into their own workflows, right? So whether it is around their customer service or sales or as part of their core product experience, it is something that will not just be able to differentiate you from your competitors, but it will be an imperative. Like if you don't do it, you will be at a disadvantage, right? We've also made some investments in Gen AI over the last couple of months, and these are again diverse from education to infra and other areas. I think from an enterprise standpoint, there are of course two main areas where a lot of use cases are going around the knowledge graph search within enterprise, right? You have lots of unstructured data within enterprises where they earlier used basic chatbots but weren't very successful. Those data sets are now exposed along with these LLMs and are able to now derive new reasoning, new insights that can drive business. The other is around the whole enterprise workflows, right? How do you bring AI and AI agents that are able to sort of accomplish tasks that weren't accomplished by humans earlier? And again, the step function change in terms of the technical ability of these models is rapidly evolving, right? So I think from an enterprise standpoint, if you are building enterprise apps or SaaS apps, it's a great time and it's exciting time to be part of these new use cases that are coming up, and then work with companies in various different sectors and identifying how you can sort of scale them.
Yeah, in fact, we've identified 3 or 4 really exciting ones as part of the panel that we ran in the morning. So I think we'll hear it in a bit. Yeah, great insights. The next follow-up on that is within our own orgs. I mean, you'll have a different perspective. You launch your own firm, Turbostart. We use some of our software today to do that. What are the things that you mentioned mid-journey? What are the things that your organizations are doing to adopt to the new one, or any plans that you have in the next 6 to 8 months? We need to pivot ABCD functions to Gen AI or AI.
Yeah. So I think, like I said, there are 3 or 4 core functions. There's editorial, there's content generation, there's performance marketing, of course, and then there's the whole creative/graphic design space. We have all these teams with us because we are right in the middle of the media and entertainment segment. And the way we are thinking about it is right now it's an experimentation phase. So we are trying out different tools. We are trying out to see which ones that are easier to learn for a large proportion of the workforce, and really what benefits is it getting us. So let me give you a couple of examples. In terms of editorial or content, when you think of it, you want to see what is the time spent that viewers and users do on different pieces of content. That really gives you an indication of how good is this content that AI is generating. I mean, it may look great semantics, excellent use of language, the grammar is perfect, so on and so forth. But is it really exciting enough to read? I think that there's always still a debate going on that, can it really be human infused, so to speak? We've seen some interesting examples, but right now it's more at a summary level or at a headline level from an editorial function perspective and a content perspective. Performance marketing is some place where we think it's going to leapfrog, get adopted very, very quickly, because it's inherently a function that depends on rapid experimentation and iteration almost on an hourly basis if you can. Right? It's going to challenge even Google and Facebook because several of their advertising algorithms take days on the current ML paths to learn about which creatives are working or not. So it's actually as much as I would say a challenge to them as to most of the other companies as well. But we have not yet fully gone down the path of reorganizing the internal company structures as yet, to answer your second part of your question. I think that will come once we know the potential of these tools, once we are able to internalize it and really shortlist those that are working very well for some of the metrics that we track on a daily basis. That's where our current thought process is.
Yeah, in fact, 1/3 of our companies who participated in our event today were almost performance marketing, performance marketing, and then faster time to produce creative and all of that. Yeah. Ravi?
I have one example to give. Unilever, I've worked with Unilever for a pretty long time, and they would always say Unilever themselves don't know how good and strong Unilever is, which is because multiple categories, multiple markets, and they never knew what was happening in, let's say, the detergent side, laundry. The soaps did not know, or personal care didn't know what was happening on the other side. There was nothing that was unifying to centralize learnings, therefore go-to-market can be fastened quickly. My reading of, I would like to talk on Turbostart itself, right? Currently, we have close to 40 entities, very close, that we have identified, at 30 that is already working with us, and soon with Middle East and US and Singapore soon starting. By March next year, we will end up with close to 80 entities, partners, deployed funds by Turbostart. What stops us, even within the first 30 that we have, that these startups talk to each other to say, hey, it's a simple idea, it's one cohort group of set of companies. What if there is a problem statement is one, all it takes is some of the best brains that we have within the startups to say, this is what you can do, this is what you can approach. All I am saying is aggregating the strengths of our entire entity for the development and growth of our own startups that we have. To me, I see AI can bring this to a large level in getting all the cohesive information to one point, and we can capitalize dramatically. I would say as simple as this, AI can dramatically work for us.
Yep, very true. Brij?
So some of the very interesting use cases that I've seen in our portfolio and some things that we're working on as well is, so for example, if you bring in a certain amount of LLM modeling as part of your workflows, you can derive a whole different set of insights as part of your customer pipelines or your sales pipeline. So, how do you, let's say, segment your customers better? How do you qualify your leads better? These are the types of things where bringing in external macro knowledge, summarizing that, having a much more clearer messaging are some of the use cases that we are starting to see that have measurable impact. Some of the things that we ourselves are working on are in the areas of finance, legal, and compliance, where these are older industries where lots of different data sets and laws and changes happen, and you can again bring in AI models to give a much more clearer picture to companies on how to handle certain macro changes, right? So these are just few examples of some of the use cases that I've seen working in our portfolio and other companies.
I had one point to add, and this is for the larger consumer internet ecosystem. If I were to just step outside my current field of work, I think a very core space which companies spend a lot of time iterating and experimenting with is product design, right? Just the UI, UX journeys of customers on their apps. Whether you're a food delivery app or a entertainment app or what have you. I think AI, in terms of just generating various options and you able to experiment them on a beta or even an alpha stage with several user cohorts, this will give companies a lot of confidence in launching their V1 of products, right? And even as they go along and iterate and launch further and further versions, it's very difficult. It's almost an art to a large extent, which is why I think AI is so super relevant in this space, because it's able to think like, how would a human use this app? And if with all the learning that AI models have, if you are able to generate 2 or 3 different very unique experiences, test them out, then you're going to spend a lot less money and time in going to market and really growing your target demographic. So I think overall for the consumer internet ecosystem, it's if there are companies which are going to get into product design and UI UX design utilizing AI, I think that's another fantastic product market fit.
Yep, absolutely. Again, very interesting conversations, but again, keeping time in for the next panel who is waiting to come on. There are a lot of budding entrepreneurs here. Some of them pitched us, not even on an MVP stage, prototyping, etc. What is your number one hack for each of these budding entrepreneurs or startups around embracing AI?
With the first one, if you don't embrace AI and not know what is essentially required and critical for your business to grow, you are getting to be vulnerable. Remember, there's no escaping the fact because two things AI really does. One, it will help you reduce your headcount, which is very critical in a startup zone, to do better things and upskill yourself. And the same set of work that continues to happen, you need fewer people. Both these benefit and really brings in value economy to you as a startup. So I would urge you to really look at, if you don't have the right AI partner within your teams, find one. That's your dire, urgent need, and that will make you grow better.
There's no escape. There's no escape.
I think I would still, these are still very early days, right? So I would qualify that a little bit, saying that, look, I think it's more important that you still need to get a better understanding what the true customer needs are, right? Like that is still, that doesn't really go away, right? So while, AI, especially the Gen AI latest SOTA model capabilities are increasing, it's very important to figure out, are you solving true pain points or not, right? I think one of the things that we have to all avoid is this tendency to just jump in and, maybe just solving good to have sort of use cases, right? I think it's important to get a very deep understanding, regardless of which part of the stack that you're working on, and then building from customer feedback backwards, right? So I think that's one of the things that I would highlight.
No, I totally agree. And again, while I don't want to sound very controversial on this, AI killed Meta about 8 months ago, or one year ago probably. It was like everybody wants to just train their people on AR and Meta, and then company pivoted its name to Meta. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen for AI like that, because I think it's a lot more stronger foundation. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a fine balance to find out whether we really have a use case or not. Just by putting an LLM on your slide deck does not mean you have got an AI model built in. But yeah, great views. Thanks. Your hack to the audience.
I think for the startup founders and folks who really wish to get a jump start, it's back to brilliant basics. If you're going to tackle a problem that is taking companies a lot of time today, one example being performance marketing, like I said, you're on the right path. It's a massive opportunity for you. The second one is, again, design, which is very time consuming, and there are several iterations that you need to go for if you're solving for those problems. Again, a brilliant product market fit. And finally, I think if you can, and I don't have the answer to this, I hope I'll find out soon. But if you're going to get into the content and editorial space, which is, we all say it's extremely crowded. You gave the example of screenwriters who are on strike right now because they feel threatened by AI. I think if you can find ways to come up with new content formats for the new generation of consumers, these three are, I think, massive spaces to solve for. And if you're amongst the first in the game, then you're going to be leading the pack.
Yep, awesome. I'm going to summarize. Get your basics right. Don't jump in without evaluating, and you cannot escape it. Yeah. Thank you so much for your brilliant insights, and thank you for all.
Hi everyone. So I think the previous panel was a perfect segue into what we're going to be discussing on this one. We discussed all of the opportunities there are, and probably now we're going to discuss how we can solve for those opportunities and make the most of this. As discussed during our chat earlier today, at the core, Meolaa doesn't do anything AI. But I strongly believe that over the next decade, at the core, every company is going to be Gen AI. We leverage a lot of AI in everything that we do. When I think about it, I can't think of one function where we're not using a AI-based tool. So I'm quite excited for this discussion. But I think to kick it off, we all know that implementations of AI, integrations are only increasing. How do you think AI is disrupting industry norms? And the word I have here is reshaping, but I want to sub that for disrupting industry norms, business models as a whole, and of course, how teams work as well as how teams are built. We'll probably start with you.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, everyone. So from my perspective, the generative AI, we broadly divide into two aspects. One is on the productivity, which means that user is giving some content and he's taking the help of LLM to rephrase it or summarize it, or if there is any lot of data he wants to ask question and answers, it will help him. So this is the productivity. The second part of generative AI is about the creativity, which means that you want to create some image which is in your thoughts, like a dark horse with my car in a beach, right? It will create it for you. Right? Or you are creating a music which is your life. Right now, at least at Samsung, we are not touching that creativity part, because just now we were discussing about that copyrights, somebody will sue it. There are a lot of Spotify artists doing a lot of protest in legal, right? So we are not still there, and once the ecosystem evolves, the government laws evolve, right? There is some guarding done, right? Then we'll move into that creativity. Right now, our focus is more on the productivity. Productivity also, I divide it into two parts. The first part is about the employee experience, right? So when an employee steps into the office, how he will become productive. For example, in a HR function, I need to know my paternity leave, how many days I have, right? Currently, I have to open the document, search it somewhere, it will be digged somewhere in the HR, right? So I need to look at that and figure out which clause, which where it is. So instead of that, I have some interface where I say that what is my paternity leave, right? It will directly give you. This is a very, very simple, but the employee enriching experience. Ultimately, it will help the company's productivity also. This is one example. And second thing is from sales perspective or customer satisfaction, right? So as you know, the current chatbots still are not to the point that everything it can handle. At some point, there is a human intervention. So the human will try to read the complete chat, what it has been done by the chat. Then he will try to answer. Then the next day comes and the actual consumer again says that this is not working like that. So here again, he has to read that human chat, from there to chatbot what it gave, understand the context, then continue. So instead of that, if LLM is able to summarize all the context, right, what happened before, and provide a summary of it, from there it continues, right? So again, it's a productivity. So everywhere about this employee productivity and employee experience internal to Samsung, right? We are looking into that. How do we enable each and every function, not just HR, sales, marketing, everywhere. The second aspect, which is very, very important in Samsung context, is about product development. Now, for a Samsung company, right, so it's about hardware, there is a software, and once the product is made, there is sales, marketing, lot of things. So for the sake of this discussion, let me focus on software. First is we have this requirements, right? So AI can enable lot of decision making for products, MVP itself, or if the product is launched, where I need to improve. The decision making completely relies on AI, which we are already using it. Okay. The next phase is about in the SDLC process, the design phase. Here, there was a lot of argument in between before, right? Before the panel, whether I use LLM or I don't use LLM. It's up to the product's choice, right? You don't need to overfit it because of the cost, lot of things. When you are fitting a LLM or any AI, it comes with pros and cons. So here it's optional to decide whether it needs AI or not. And the challenges here, if you are choosing AI, especially for Samsung context, we have a cloud solution and we have a lot of devices where on-device AI is shipped. And the kind of products we have from mobile, digital appliances, consumer like TV, etc. The portfolio of memory varies. So it's very tough to compress and bring in the same experience. So from design, ultimately you'll move to coding phase because you need to stitch some of the software. There also we are enabling lot of code generation LLMs where it will help the productivity of the employees. Then we go to the testing phase. Here it's very tricky right now with generative AI. Many times we always write positive cases for our software to test it. Very minimalistic negative testing because you can't think through. Here, generative AI plays a huge role in creating a negative test cases, where there is no production failure. You are able to do it just before launching the product. So the second aspect, so in the product life cycle, even though you are shipping LLM or not, or AI or not, before the software and after the software, what happens? You still consider, especially for startups, if you're not considering AI, in the development itself, you can consider to use it to enable your productivity. Yeah, from that, what?
So much, Praveen. I think you covered both the points I was hoping to cover. So I was thinking what to say. But thanks for the question as well, Ishita. Interesting question. I think very well said. It's a disruption more than just reshaping the industry. And I'll probably just cover this one aspect of how the whole industry is going to be disrupted with the AI that we are witnessing in the last few months, largely. So I think if you look at, and especially from the content perspective, I think internet is nothing more than a lot of content that we are creating, sharing and consuming day in, day out. Whether it's like the education content, entertainment content, it's essentially content, largely content, right? So if you look at the whole evolution of internet in the last 30 years, we started with company generated content. So companies used to generate content on internet. All of us used to like read through a lot of content. We were just like reading content generated by companies. So you can call it CGC as well, like company generated content. From companies generating content, we evolved into user generated content, where like companies like Facebook and Orkut and TikTok, or multiple kinds of content, whether it's like video, text, images, but users started to generate content. So from CGC, we evolved into UGC, users generating content. And the whole industry got massively disrupted. Like now 95% of the content, in fact 99% of the content you see on internet is all UGC content. I think with the speed at which AI is picking up in every aspect of content and the use cases, AI GC is going to be the next wave of content. So it's a very interesting evolution of CGC to UGC to how AI GC will take it all. When I say AI GC will take it all, it's hard to comprehend like how will AI take all the content space, right? So if you're scrolling through TikTok, how do you imagine all of that AI content and not real people? So it's going to be an evolution which will involve a blend of UGC and AI GC, but essentially it's going to be largely AI GC as well. Even today it's just like it's a little more hidden, and it'll be like very, very clear to us in next few years to come. So I think that's how I see specifically talking about content and internet shaping up with AI.
Thank you. Ishita, your question was implications for the business process, business models of enterprises because of AI. I can call out 2 or 3. One being, today most enterprises are structured around business processes, whether somebody is responsible for supply chain or sales or support and so on and so forth. And that is going to shift where the business process operations is going to be automatically run through automation agents, if you will, autonomous agents. And the business process owners are going to be just in the business of creating those processes and continue to fine-tuning them. So the entire thing built today, where its business process ownership means operations, that's going to be given to AI-powered autonomous agents, and this is going to have a significant shift. Second thing is around organizational structure, if you will. Again, today's enterprises are built around a business unit with its own P&L, their own data, staff, etc. for distribution, product development, and so on. And the fact that data has to be captured across the enterprise is going to break down such a structure, if you will, so that it enables the enterprise to leverage the data across holistically, looking at the customers holistically and so on. BCG talks about this maturity curve, what they call as a bionic enterprise, for example. And for that, this org structure is going to change into something what they call as dynamic, fluid platform structures, brought together for a certain mission, you accomplish it, then it disbands and moves on to that. So the shift, these are fundamental shifts. The last one is on the business models itself. Today, for example, fail fast, iterate is like the land of startups. But with the power of AI, Gen AI, large enterprises can experiment, roll out products, test it, get the reaction, and it gives them the power to do that. So there are serious implications, and I think enterprises who are adopting AI holistically, you would see all these changes across the board.
Very interesting. So I have a question for you, Praveen, but I will give you context as to why I have this question for you, right? We are a 1.5-year-old startup in Meolaa, and when we look at our direct competitors, which are other horizontal platforms in the market, like an Amazon or Flipkart, they have years and years of data mines and much larger sample sizes to make a lot of decisions, as well as on what their systems are based on, right? With Meolaa, I think where we have seen the potential of AI is actually taking that on. What they have built over probably a couple of decades, we can do in 3 to 5 years. Because, for example, today my search is AI enabled, right? So my search engine is on par with an Amazon or Flipkart with the use of AI, which wouldn't have been possible 2 years from, 2 years before. But I would like to know from you, because you're working in a tech giant, in a very large organization, how do you evaluate the benefits of AI when it comes to your final product and offering for the consumer? And how is that probably slightly different from how a startup perceives it?
Okay, so one thing you made it very clear is like Samsung, right? It has almost, from the voice assistant perspective, we develop a Bixby. Right. So it is enabled in the 34 million Galaxy devices, which means you can imagine the data we will be processing, right? So it's very clear that for us, the first thing when the data comes into picture, so we don't look at what is a technology you need to have, whether AI, traditional AI, or Gen AI, or no AI itself. It's about the experience what we can create to the consumers. If Gen AI is able to complement it, okay, so we can adapt it. Otherwise, we won't be adapting it. So, and most importantly, the challenges in Samsung for us is we have a lot of portfolio of devices. Some we call it as a near field devices, which is like your smartphone, which is hand reachable, right? Your smartphone, smartwatch, and your buds, right? So here the interaction when you are doing with that device, how easily you can communicate, right? For example, you have a buds, you can say play Spotify. You don't need to take your mobile out, right? And you are doing a jogging and you are saying play Spotify, it's able to play it. So this is called in-pocket experience. There are far-field devices, which is like air conditioners, or it can be your robo vacuum cleaners, or it can be your TVs, right? So every time you don't need to search for a remote and figure out where it is and try to operate it. So there you can give a voice interactions, which is much easier to control the device. The experience gets enhanced. So this is the experience, right? Now the back end part of it is the complex under hood algorithms. You need speech and processing algorithms which runs on AI, natural language understanding and processing, natural language generation, text to speech, all are powered by AI, right? Now coming, what are the startups? So just now Venkat was telling about, they got that power of fail fast. So previously it may be taking a lot of energy and productivity to build a prototype, 3 months, 6 months, go for a beta testing, then take the feedback, come back. Now you can do a lot of simulations using Gen AI. So that's where I think there is a lot of head start for the startups. This is my opinion. Yeah.
So you think startups are a lot more agile that way?
Yes, startups are more agile, but one thing, while we are talking about startups, why as a Samsung corporate I am here? This is a question for many of the teams, right? So in many corporates which are very big, right, we will have internally 30 to 40 startups running. Okay. So for example, for the voice assistants which we are shipping now, after 3 years, what's going to come? We already have a research prototypes. So startup, there is a internal, we call it as intrapreneur culture inside Samsung, which does this startups also. Yeah.
The mindset still needs.
Mindset, yes.
Yeah. So, Venkat, I have a question for you. From a startup founder's perspective who recently started out, kind of Gen AI was well established when I started out, right? So when we were building our team structures, when we were thinking about how each of our functions should work, Gen AI was already a part of that discussion. So that's how we built it out. But you have had quite a lot of cross-border experience, worked with startups as well as well-skilled organizations. Where do you see that there are some adaptability issues? And how do you think startups can then solve for those adaptability issues?
I can tell you from my experience as an advisor to GE Healthcare. So they ran an accelerator called the Edison Accelerator, where they said, we are sitting on so much of data, highly regulated data from our medical devices. We are going to challenge the startups with the greatest algorithms and models to come and use the data to create some interesting solutions which we can jointly go to market. So the fit or the synergies are obvious, but you talked about adaptability or the challenges. This data is extremely sensitive, and so opportunities are there, but somebody has to solve the problem, and there are products like confidential computing, homomorphic computing, and so on and so forth. I can go into dealing with privacy, confidentiality, etc. So those are hurdles that startups should be aware of, because the enterprises are hungry for interesting AI solutions, but they should be mindful of what the enterprise needs are. Equally, enterprises have to create an environment where startups can be adopted easily, and that's where folks like Turbostart and others can play a role, bridging the gap, bridging the divide, so that it becomes a win-win opportunity here, and that is important. The other things enterprises are grappling with, because they are sitting on so much of data, they're already dealing with GDPR and those type of compliance. Now with Gen AI, it's basically on steroids actually. They are worried about what kind of copyrights and other kind of infringement that they could be doing, and the privacy and other things, as well as the issues around AI, bias and so on. So they are seeking help for responsible AI, risk management with AI. So these are all great opportunities for startups to help enterprises go through the AI journey.
But I think something we all agree on is that these solutions come at a much, much higher cost, at least at this point in time. How are enterprises receiving these price points? Are they willing to make the investments? Are there paid pilots and POCs happening, or are those still expected to be free of cost? Being from a frugal startup background, we have expected that from our partners, but I'd like to know how enterprises are thinking about it.
Great question, actually. You look at OpenAI and how much money they are bleeding on a given day, for example. So purely on the economic side of things, the cost of one token or the cost of doing one query is incredible. It has to come to a price point. No wonder OpenAI announced an enterprise version of the product. But overall, I think as industry is thinking, and I am pretty confident that the price is going to come down where it makes sense. But people have to be very mindful on where they're going to be applying Gen AI selectively and frugally. And I do have hope, expectation from the community to help with the economics of that.
Great. Just adding to this, so I think what you also asked, I think definitely the cost is little high right now. But the good news is that if you have great use cases, I think use case is a bigger problem than just the technology. And a lot of time we just are so much lost in the tech, we don't talk about the use cases. But if the use cases make money for the enterprise, I think users pay for it. Then they pay you as a startup. So I think we are seeing this a lot happening with Flam as a company itself in the US. I'm sure a lot of, in fact, Indian companies have also started paying us. So we have seen that it's the use case more than anything else at the end of the day. And yes, I think that's already happening.
Flam is at the forefront of AI-powered 3D content, right? I love this word that you use, AIGC. So what are the challenges and opportunities that you see in this whole UGC to AIGC transition? And how do you think Flam is going to be solving a very strong use case for it?
Sure. So I think let's talk about the challenge first, right? So I think the larger challenge is if you look at any ecosystem at all, whether it's the image ecosystem or the video ecosystem, what you really need to do is democratize the creation part. If you democratize the creation of anything at scale, then there is so much data available for you to clean, tag, train, and then apply AI. And that's the phenomenal part we are seeing now with OpenAI, because there was so much of text, so much of images that you could create great models on top of them. But videos are still not solved, by the way, right? Because you do not have that much video content which is cleaned and tagged to that extent, right? So I think the larger challenge with 3D that we are essentially solving is how do you democratize the creation of 3D at scale? And 3D is a very, very new ecosystem. It's a very new space as compared to images, text, and videos. I think that's the challenge part. The opportunity is that if you really crack the democratization part, and if 100 million people start to create 3D content, then you are essentially doing what Facebook, this is one kind of analogy, but what Facebook did with image tagging. So if you remember, Facebook introduced a feature of tagging people, right? It was basically collecting very clean data, which is where they could create facial recognition model. So everything AI only makes it's not a algorithm problem. It's a data problem. So if you have the acquisition at scale, which is cleaned up and which is like tagged properly, then you can create phenomenal AI. So I think eventual dream of Flam is that you can write a prompt, or basically you can upload an image or whatever, and you can create advanced 3D experiences without any kind of user involvement at all. And that's only possible if you have that kind of data generated through democratization. So it's a very, very green field. I think anybody building in 3D would love to chat more, but yeah, this is phenomenal as a field. So yeah.
That's amazing. So I think this is a little bit of a pessimistic last question. And I ask this only because, I also have a tech team. We started using AI to build certain code. It gives very clean code. However, something we realized is that it's lacking domain expertise, end-to-end domain expertise. For example, when a full stack developer who has front-end, back-end expertise looks at that code, they're able to apply their domain expertise and identify issues in that code. So now we're realizing that, end-to-end domain expertise is going to become a lot more important if we have to work cross-functionally with AI tools. Where else? So this was a blind spot we kind of, recognized. Where, this is a question to all three of you. Where else do you think there is a blind spot which can be solved for and probably serves as a potential startup? What's a blind spot that's not been solved for thus far?
So my view is, I was interacting with, there is one event, Solve for Tomorrow, which is a Samsung event where we enable some STEM students to create some ideas. So one of the question was, will AI take my job, right? My answer was very simple. I told that previously when our generation used to attend the interviews out of 4, right? So one will select, all 4 were there. So now there is one more additional which is hidden is AI, right? So ultimately the answer is simple. So you cannot escape AI. Either you can do 2 things. One is you can be more creative than AI. Otherwise, you use AI, whatever the generated output, and on top of that complement it. Only these ways you can survive, right? But AI you cannot avoid, definitely. Now coming to your question, I really encourage your team to consider using open source tools for generating the code. But currently it is not in the way where it can do a system design understand, right? It can generate snippets of several pieces of code. So the domain expert will be stitching that code. But still, it can save you 30 to 40% of your time in writing that code. Second thing, I already told you about this quality measures, right? Where it can generate negative test cases. They generate negative test cases. The complete system design can be tested. So the flaws after going into production and, oh, this I would have tested. So that can be avoided by 30 to 40%. So please consider using AI.
Basically replacing Stack Overflow. Essentially, yes, this is like exactly what's happening in our company as well. Stack Overflow, no one uses that anymore, and makes complete sense as well. But I think when you asked about what's the blind spot, I think everything right now is a blind spot. We have not even touched the surface of what AI can do. It's all green right now, literally. Like if you think about it, I have not seen a single designer like at production who is using Midjourney. At production I'm talking about. You can have fun with it. You can probably impress a few people and a few of your family, friends and all of that, right? But using AI to make a difference is not happening. So when we talk about 3D, I think it's way advanced in terms of changing the whole content plane. But even if you want to solve, like I spent literally 1 month meeting a lot of founders in the US who are trying to solve video with generative AI. And it is such a hard problem. First of all, it's a problem unsolved, right? Secondly, the use cases are not known. And even if the use cases are known, it's hard to build those use cases because generic video creation, generic image creation, generic text is very easy to solve. But the moment you talk about niches, you need data. So facial recognition is a solved problem with AI. But the moment you talk about a specific kind of beard or a specific kind of face shape, there's no model for that. So you have to train the model. And for training the model, you need data. You have to tag the data, right? So I think any founder, any startup who picks up this space today, you are on the forefront of the entire disruption, the first word with which we started the whole panel. So I think everything is a blind spot.
I would second the comments made so far. The only point I want to add is to specifically answer your question. The kind of developers you want to bring on board are people who are thinkers, designers, less so the actual pure coders, if you will. It's open source tools, it's GitHub Copilot or whatever, but let it do all the grunt work, if you will. But the thought process should be the product manager, the business analyst, the lead designer. They should think more in terms of software design and less so on the actual coding. And if that framework is adopted, some of the blind spots could be covered. And then like you have the blend of both the domain expertise coming from the humans, augmented by the bottom-up code coming from AI. But over time, AI is going to continue to encroach more and more coming up the stack, if you will. And that means the people's creativity in the design and stitching together, all those things are important. So as a company, you should be looking for people with that kind of mindset rather than like robotic coding, if you will.
Thank you so much. It's great learning from you.
So I'll start with the panel that I was hosting and I'll call people Ravi. Brij took time out on his personal special day. It's his birthday today. Happy birthday, Brij. And Venki. For the second panel, Ishita, thanks for conducting the panel. Praveen. Venkat. And then of course, Shourya.
Venkat actually raised this question as to we should embrace AI before anybody else does, primarily because we are supposed to be facilitating innovation. That's how this whole thing started. So it's all put together in the last 2 weeks or so. So got about 300 registrations and about 75 valid applications.
75 valid.
And then today we finalized about 12.
Yeah.
And 12 startups made a pitch to us today. So supposed to be 3 winners, but we thought 4 of them were extremely good. In line with Turbostart's 4th anniversary, we thought as well announce 4 winners. This is about Augmetrics. I think in a world where we are not even still talking about AGI, we'll still remain confined with AI. And what better than a platform that can democratize AI for enterprises of any size and in a low-code format. And with a model that is having PaaS, SaaS, and OS, which was fantastic, we thought. From a market sizing perspective, they had not just the current, but also the futuristic market sizing, which was phenomenal. From unit economics, I also liked the idea of having a CAC payback, which was good. And in terms of competitive landscape, normally we see at the higher end of the spectrum already, but they were lower end, showing us where they can reach. Very crisp, concise financial numbers for the next 5 years. And it was just an obvious choice. Almost unanimously, there was a consensus to choose Augmetrics. So, thank you.
I'll speak about the second one. We were again unanimous on this one, almost we are unanimous on all. I'd like to call upon stage Sahil from AutoFlow. So end-to-end testing, automation, flow, I think there's a little bit early stage, but then we see a lot of promise in what you've built. And we're going to back you for building this idea together. Yeah? Thanks. Thank you. Ravi, why don't you come up and speak about Pixage?
This is a universal problem with every marketer, whoever spends on advertising, to figure out which part of the platforms are actually bringing me revenue and therefore revenue attribution. That's a monster issue. Globally, everyone is struggling. I thought the team here and our entire panel jury that we really looked and discussed, we felt this is a great opportunity. If they can move the needle even 10% better than where we are today, that can mean a huge saving of dollars and better efficiencies in play for all the companies, corporates in the country. So Pixage has come out with some unbelievable founders who I think can add tremendous value. Turbostart can make a much more contribution to it, but the first thing that I would like to tell the 3 founders is to say, you don't need to write a CV anymore, you just got to step out. Good luck.
And as Ganesh said, we had decided on 3, but we had to finally settle down on 4 because we really loved all of them. Manika, can you just come up?
Congratulations, Skilly. So Skilly is an edtech space and they focus on upskilling and training. And they focus on people who are working in the tech function. They leverage AI to create personalized journeys, learning journeys for the users. And this dynamic duo, they have their heart and their mind in the right place. And I think with Turbostart's guidance, these guys will grow leaps and bounds. Congratulations to you guys. That's it.
We announced 4 winners, well deserved, congratulations. But I also want to point out to all the 12 finalists, we love all of you, and we hope to engage with you in some capacity in the near future. Thank you.